Now, Momoyama period, what is the most important? Toyotomi Hideyoshi, right? The man in power, official artwork that supports his powerful regime. So official painting for palaces and castles were given to Kano School of Painting. And Kano School started in Muromachi period, or even like end of Kamakura, and then they continued as family lineage. And Momoyama period, the headmaster was Kano Eitoku, and this particular painting is called the Cypress Tree, painted 1590, and that was made for Toyotomi Hideyoshi's castle. So it's colossal, like a 180 inches. It's like can fill the entire room. And then you should be able to talk about the techniques of the Kano school. Quite decorative, uses a lot of color, but these pigments are mineral-based pigments, so that it is a teamwork. Kano school of painting hired a number of apprentices, and they will work on various elements. And then Tawaraya Sotatsu, eventually going to be related to Rinpa school. So unlike a masculine, imposing, colossal composition of Kano, Tawaraya Sotatsu and his Honami Koetsu, and then eventually Ogata Korin that we will see in Edo period, they preferred a little bit more poetic and decorative composition. So this is Thunder God and Wind God, and you just have that gold foiled background. And then Namban is a type of artwork, like a genre of artwork. Toward the end of 16th century, there were a lot of Portuguese merchants visiting Nagasaki in Kyushu Island, and Japanese people like to depict that foreign, exotic lifestyles of Portuguese merchants, including Jesuit priests. So that's the depiction of it. And this type of subject matter is called Namban. Namban painting or Namban byo. Byobu means screen painting. And so Namban literally means southern barbarians. But in this case, it's more like foreigners who came from the south, meaning the south of China Ocean. So techniques are very similar to Kano style painting. Scenes are cropped, and you have a large golden clouds as a face filler, and then figures are depicted as engaged in some activities. So these are Kano style painting, but Namban subject matter. So you should also remember Honami Koetsu. So with the rise of Zen Buddhism, Japanese people prefer this type of rustic. Do you know the word rustic? Unsophisticated, meaning like a less decorative ceramics. So it's a trend. They like this type of sort of a coarse, clumsy, even amateurish like a look of the ceramic. But in fact, this is a highly accomplished form of ceramic making, because you have to control these changing colors, right? And then these are like an accidental impact. There are some glass components. It's not covering the whole bowl. It's only covering a little bit of the bottom. So during the tea ceremony, you are allowed to touch the bowl given to you, and then you can flip over in order to see this. You can see the end, the other side of the bowl, and you are admiring the beautiful things. It's a gift from the nature. So this one is called Mount Fuji, and now you understand why it reminds people of Mount Fuji, right? It's covered with the snow on the top, that's why it's white, and then some greenish, and then you have dark purple at the bottom. And then finally, Edo period, you have to know Rinpa school. I'm not going over too much, but if you have this type of subject matter of 8 bridges, you should be able to discuss the literature that's related to 8 bridges. So you can go back to your slide, and then you have to remember this is just one of a pair of screens, right? Irises, flower. Now ukiyo-e print. Ukiyo-e literally means painting of a floating world. And the word floating world came from this storybook. But subject matters are usually ordinary citizens living in this floating world, precarious world. You don't know what will happen to you tomorrow. Like you only live once, those kind of attitude. Hokusai, wonderful printmaker, meaning he's more like an illustrator for landscape, right? So he had a series of Mount Fuji views, 36 views of Mount Fuji. And then another one is this. Finally, you come to the Meiji Restoration period, and that's the effort of modernization. So Japan started late, like around 1867, but in 10 years, I told you that they caught up with remarkable progress in England or France. So among groups of new generation of painters who studied yoga, meaning oil painting, the most representative person is Kuroda Seiki. So you should remember this painting, and you should be able to explain why this painting was considered such a great example of good oil painting in Asian countries. It's not just Japan, like Taiwan, Korea, even China. A lot of young generations of oil painters thought this is a great example that they should emulate. And Yayoi Kusama, right, like a net painting, but this is related to Japanese tradition. Remember which school of painting? Kano school of painting is a direct source of inspiration for Yayoi Kusama, because Yayoi Kusama was working for the studio, Kano studio, when she was a young person, young artist. So I think, and then Takashi Murakami, like this DOB, we talked about DOB. So Takashi Murakami uses motifs of pop art. So in this case, even though it's his invention, it looks a bit more like Mickey Mouse, right? Like a familiar cartoon characters, but in reality, it has extremely grotesque and disturbing features. Like there are deformed face, and then look at these teeth. There are very strange like natures of many eyes, no torso. So Japanese people who grew up after Second World War, they grew up with these horrific images of nuclear explosion. It's in their mind. They would not express it in words or in expressive behavior, but it's all in their sentiment, meaning their lives can be wiped out at any instance. And then if you see this cloud coming down, right, you can be reminded of the Raigo painting or that thunder god and wind god type of device. So Takashi Murakami is also well versed with Japanese tradition. So I think that's it. I told me about like a 22, 3 images. So as long as you know all of those examples, and you should be able to explain, in your own words, you can take the final exam really well.